All right, and we are joined now by some Bellator royalty, the lightweight champion of the world. Michael Chandler joins us here through Skype. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Nothing better than putting in a phenomenal training camp and being in fight week. Now, all the hard work is done.
Every time I talk to you, you have a phenomenal training camp. You ever had a bad one?
I've had a couple. I have definitely had a couple injuries, a couple fights maybe that I should have pulled out of. I've never pulled out of a fight, but you know, it's the funny thing is if I would tell you like 5 or 6 things that happened during this training camp, you probably would think that it was a not so great training camp. But I mean, the glass is always half full, man. I actually got asked the other day, what this fight means and this fight rivalry and this, that, and the other thing. Honestly, just being able to compete at this level, at this high level, with this capable body after 10 years in the sport, man, and still feeling like I'm getting better, still feeling like I'm just scratching the surface of my potential. It's reinvigorating, it's rejuvenating every single time I come back down here to Florida to get my training in.
All right, so you're in Florida. But every time I talk, I get confused because I know you built a facility in your new hometown of Nashville. And I know you've done some training there, but you're in Florida. So, what do you use the Nashville facility for?
So that's my home gym. We have a couple fighters that train out of there, some decent coaches, some good coaches. So it's almost like I have to separate both gyms. I know for me, the fighter, the guy who's trying to be a world champion and chase my dreams, I have to be with these guys down here, with Henry Hooft and all these champions and all the other organizations, as well as Bellator, with the great training partners and the great facilities to be able to run my fight camps. But the other 200-something days a year, I'm at home in Nashville. I got a phenomenal strength conditioning coaches out there, phenomenal striking coaches, grappling coaches. I have bodies to work with out there. So essentially I built my own home gym in Nashville, which is not a home gym. It's not like it's in my garage, but it's a 10,000 square foot facility, full mats, 3,000 square foot of mats, 3,000 square foot of fitness area to just fitness heaven. So that's where I do a lot of my workouts in between training camps when I'm working on my body, focusing on becoming a bigger, faster, stronger athlete. And then once I come down here, I can hone in on the skills necessary to beat my opponents.
Sometimes I talk to you and you have these fights where you have legitimate talent. The guy, Brent Primus, I know it was kind of personal for you, but in some ways I never felt like you guys were super connected as rivals. And then today, or over the weekend, he goes and go plot as a guy. But with the Pitbull brothers, I mean, there could be no mistaking about this. You guys are tied at the hip. You knocked his brother out, and then you got on the cage and you had words with him. Fair to say the most personal rivalry of your career?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I would also say I think it's mainly on his camp. It's mainly on his side. I mean, I've usually tried to stay pretty even keel, man. I mean, I've growing up wrestling, you have certain team rivalries. Whether it's I was in the Big 12, so the Oklahoma State, Nebraska, Iowa State, those schools, you wanted to beat those guys for more reasons other than just winning a match, So I've learned how to compartmentalize the actual rivalry that we've had. I mean, I think part of it is we've just been around each other. It's almost like, someone's your friend or someone's cool, someone's your best friend until you live with them. You almost spend so much time with them that they get on your nerves. And I feel like Patricio has kind of been like that with me. We've probably seen each other, 40 times over the last 10 years or 8 years that we've both been in Bellator. And he's never quite been friendly. He's always known that I was going to, first of all, I beat his brother within the first, 2 years, a year or so of me being in Bellator. So he had that against me, and then I beat him again a couple of years later. So he's always had that animosity towards me. And then now, some things that he said, I'm ready to just go out there and shut him up, man. I'm excited to go out there and compete.
Let me ask you about that. I mean, he has, I think it's fair to say for anyone who's been paying attention at all, he has actively accused you of performance-enhancing drug use. Now, I don't know how legitimate those claims are, but in the interest of due diligence, I'd ask you this way. One, is there any truth to the accusations? And two, if not, what do you make of why he has been so insistent about it?
Yeah, no, there's absolutely no validity whatsoever. I've never once touched a performance-enhancing drug. The good thing is I can sit back and I can see the accusations, or I can see the things that people say, and any normal sane person would say, well, that's a feather in my cap. You obviously look so good, or you are such a conditioned, trained athlete that people accuse you of those kinds of things. For him to say it, I don't really understand where his basis is. All he's ever said is, I think he uses them or he is using them. He's never actually brought any kind of any kind of circumstance where he may have heard through the grapevine this, that, or whatnot. I mean, the funny thing is, as soon as I started training with Coach Calavita and then TJ Dillashaw, he brought that up, and I've literally spent one workout with TJ Dillashaw. It's not like he's my boy, you know. So it's just or unfortunate timing, if you will, with that. But man, it's one of those things where I look at it for two different ways. Number one, he's already making excuses as to why and when he loses, and why and when his brother lost. And secondly, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a sad view of the human potential that you can't look at somebody, see the way that they train, and give them the benefit of the doubt that they do things right, they eat right, they train right, and they train just harder than everyone else. I've now been in a 11-week training camp. I have 1 week left. I can honestly tell you that I have not enjoyed one of my meals to the fullest extent in 11 weeks. I can honestly say that what I have put my body through in training and the lifestyle choice that I have made over the last 11 weeks is something that the very top 1% of people do, and I'm willing to make those sacrifices because I want to be the best. But I mean, it's also, we're open to criticism because whether Bellator likes to admit it or not, they don't have USADA. You know, I mean, that's the hard part about it all is I can't sit here and say, yeah, I got USADA, you know, knocking down my door every other day like some of these guys. I say USADA in the gym and I get a little bit jealous because I wish they were testing me.
What's interesting about it is you obviously have never run afoul of any anti-doping authority, whether it be a commissioner or anybody else. Nevertheless, though, the accusations, as you are well aware, I'm sure, have been persistent for years. Any way to gauge, despite it just being accusations, have they been harmful at all to your career in any capacity?
As a guy who, number one, I always want to do the right thing. I mean, gosh, I get a speeding ticket, and I feel like, you know, the scum of the earth. You know, like I'm very hard on myself sometimes. And as a guy who can lay his head on the pillow at night, knowing that I've done everything that I possibly can and done it the right way, yeah, it's harmful. Because also you get these headlines that come out, and the media loves to do it, and they love to say, you know, Patricio says this, that, and the other thing. My son is going to read these headlines someday. It's unfortunate that that's the world we live in. And truthfully, the funny thing is too, even on Instagram or these social media platforms, I never respond to people unless it's in a positive light. If someone says something positive, I will respond. But when I woke up one day to like 25 mentions or 25 whatever mentions on Instagram one day, and I saw this guy going back and forth with this lady, and he literally said the words, you know, she was like refuting that I have ever used blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah, but he has failed drug tests in the past. And I said, hey, man, I never usually respond to, you know, armchair quarterbacks like you, especially in a negative light. But you cannot literally throw out fake news into the internet. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's unfortunate that in 2019 we can say whatever we want, whether it's fact, whether it's fiction, whether it's fake. And unfortunately, it stays on the internet. You know, so it has not had any negative effect on my career whatsoever. I could care less what people say and what people think. Unfortunately, we have a sport that's not 100% clean. Even with the UFC anti-doping policy, obviously guys are getting busted left and right. So people are using, and people will continue to use as long as we live in a fallen world, and as long as human existence is the human existence, unfortunately.
I don't know how much thought you've given it, but to be candid, neither have I, but here's what I mean. Do you think media should cover accusations like that differently?
I don't know what you would do. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the media's job to take what athletes say or what certain talent says and put it into print, put it into, you know, the internet. You know, that's the job. That's your guys' job. I mean, and then could they pick and choose headlines differently? Of course. I mean, clickbait is a real thing. You know, that's why people get so many clicks on their things. But I don't know. It's unfortunate. And as a clean athlete, as it's unfortunate because I have so much confidence in myself that I'm 100% clean, and I know that I'm 100% clean, that I wish I was in an organization like the UFC. Don't use that headline as Michael Chandler wishes he was in the UFC. But you know what I'm saying? You wish I didn't have the dark cloud behind me of, yeah, but you're in Bellator, or yeah, you're in ONE FC, or yeah, you're in, Risen, these organizations that quote unquote aren't, USADA. And as soon as the UFC came in, which, man, hats off to them. Let's clean up the sport. Let's do it. But as soon as UFC adopted their anti-doping policy and brought in USADA, that's when I started seeing much more, hey, Chandler, it's not, hey, Chandler likes Bellator, or hey, Chandler is getting paid the most money in Bellator, or Chandler sees the best road to taking care of his family for setting himself up for the future in Bellator. It's Chandler stays in Bellator because they don't have drug testing like the UFC. It's silly stuff like that that just kind of it unfortunately just puts a huge blemish on how much I love this sport, or how much I love the fan base, or how much I love the MMA media.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that. In part, I just think that the introduction of USADA has scandalized any kind of accusation, but neither here nor there. Let's move on to the opponent himself. Here's my read on this one. Of the two brothers, I would actually argue Patricio is much more well-rounded, but he is smaller. So how do you size him up relative to his brother who you've already fought?
I think Patricio is the better fighter. I think Patricio is the more skilled fighter, and yes, the more dangerous fighter in a lot of areas. He's got that great guillotine, decent grappling. If he doesn't catch you in the guillotine, he does have a decent grappling. But where I see the holes is, yeah, he's much smaller. I saw him in LA, and he was probably 160 something pounds, and he was definitely a little fluffy. I have the advantage, and I look at it as the advantage of the weight cut. I was 169.4 this morning, and I am down to extremely lean, and my weight cut is essentially already done. And now I just have to water manipulate, and I look and feel phenomenal. And I put in, like I said, an 11-week training camp in order to get my body in peak optimal metabolic conditioning and form to be able to fight on May 11th. He doesn't have to do that. He's 145er coming up in weight class. So when it comes to doing the extra runs, or putting in the extra rounds, putting in the extra little bit, he's not going to be as hungry as I am because I've had to put in that work. But I've also seen him get dropped by Emmanuel Sanchez in his last fight, and dropped in the fight before that. So his chin is becoming more and more suspect, and that's just wear and tear on the body. He's got 10 more fights than I do, and he's been in the sport a couple of years longer than I have. So he's got a lot of miles on him, got a lot of miles on that brain of his, and a lot of miles on that chin. So I'm hoping to find the chin early. Go for that knockout, or go ahead and finish him on the ground if I need to.
Are you looking forward to putting the rivalry, such as it is, behind you?
Yeah, honestly, I've said this in the past too. Like, Patricio does not keep me up at night. I think it's a little bit comical how the tension is always thick every time I see him. There's just this amount of animosity that he brings to the table, and it's not just with me. Obviously, I'm happy that I got this fight because I wanted this fight, because he got in my face after I beat his brother. But he also did the same thing to Darian Caldwell. He did the same thing to all these other guys. He's a guy who's always looking to pick a fight. I don't know what it is, why it is, but I also have a lot of respect for him. He's not afraid of anybody. He wasn't afraid to fight me, who's a much bigger man. He wasn't afraid to fight Benson Henderson, who's a much bigger man. He is a fighter through and through. I respect his game. I respect him as a fighter. And hopefully after he wakes up from the knockout or the submission, we can shake hands, and we can get past this. If not, he will continue to let this resentment harbor inside of his heart, and we'll see how that works out well for him.
A few months ago, maybe more than that, maybe 6 to 9 months. I can't keep anything straight. I don't sleep very much, Michael. But I remember you telling me that you were looking for other weight class fights, like jumping up. And then, look, not every situation is the same, but Rory MacDonald tried it against Gegard Mousasi, and you could make that about that particular matchup, but obviously it did not go well for Rory in that regard. I wonder now if you have, is that still something you want to do? Have you had second thoughts about it? Like, to what extent is that still part of the Bellator bucket list?
Yeah, I think I think I'm always looking for challenges, obviously. I want to continue to challenge myself. I also have been on record saying that I wish Bellator would look to sign some more lightweights. There's got to be lightweights out there that are coming up on free agency that they need to go out and try to snag and try to pay and get them over here. I think they haven't really signed a lightweight since, Benson Henderson, Josh Thompson. It's been quite a while that they've signed a top-level lightweight. So I'd like to see what happens after this fight. I want to go out there, get this win, and then see what happens. But, you can see the size is a real thing. And Patricio is going to see that on May 11th. But, Rory saw that against Gegard. It's tough. I feel it when I go against 170-pounders in the gym, especially when it comes to length. If I fought a guy at 170, it would be more of a Paul Daly, a guy who's not, 6'3" with, a 7-inch reach advantage on me. That's no joke. So we'll see. I'd like to see what happens, but you also got to think about being a prize fighter. I want to get the biggest prize. If I go up to 170, I want to see a bigger prize.
All right, 2 more questions for you for something outside of your control. In the UFC, the 2 top lightweights are going to be Dustin Poirier and Khabib. Who do you like in that contest, and why?
I like what Dustin's been doing lately, man. He has really come on. Great striking. He's got that southpaw stance, and man, he's got a great chin. He keeps on coming. Great cardio, but I just don't see him stopping what Khabib brings to the table. I don't see him being able to get up as many times as Khabib's going to put him down. And when Khabib puts him down, I don't think Dustin's a huge lightweight at all. I think he's tried to put on a little bit more muscle. But if a guy fought 145, a year and a half, 2 years ago, chances are he's going to be much smaller than Khabib. And Khabib has a way of mauling people and out wrestling them, but not just out wrestling them, out positioning them, putting them in a position where they're literally stuck. And it's either, take a ton of damage or start shelling up and look for a way out. And unfortunately for Dustin, I think Khabib can do that to him. And I think it'll probably go to a decision, to be honest with you, because I think Dustin's just that tough. And Khabib doesn't have crazy power in his hands, even when he does get on top. So I like Khabib in that fight.
All right, and last but not least, your boy Ben Askren going up against Jordan Burroughs. This will be, of course, on Monday, May 6th, which is the day this interview will air. Now, I'm assuming you're going to pick your guy. If not, you can correct the record, but let's just do it this way. What does Ben have to do to beat Jordan Burroughs?
Ben has to be Ben. I think what most of your listeners on this show don't realize is how great of a wrestler Ben was, and I think he was even better than he accomplished. I think he under-accomplished in wrestling just because, he didn't place in the Olympics in 2008 it was.
Yep.
And then just started fighting because he saw a road to making some money. And but he said it perfectly. I think I just saw Jordan Burroughs put out there, he has no idea what's coming for him tomorrow night. And Ben said, Jordan, I'm a wrestling savant. I know exactly what's coming. The question is, can I stop it? And I think that's very much true. I think Ben can wrestle anybody in the entire world with his eyes closed. He has not lost a step. Even though he's been standing upright and fighting and grappling for the last, 10 years or so, he has not lost a step in his wrestling, and I can guarantee that. And he has not lost any of his strength or any of his unorthodox funk style that he brings to the table. And I think if you look at, a couple of times that David Taylor wrestled Jordan Burroughs, David Taylor being able to prolong those scrambles and putting Jordan Burroughs in a position where if you stop that initial shot and they start getting to a scramble type of situation, Jordan Burroughs doesn't always win. As a matter of fact, I think it's more like a 50-50. But Jordan Burroughs is the best athlete I've ever competed against. I competed against him 3 or 4 times in college because that Nebraska Mizzou Big 12 rivalry. And it's going to be interesting, but I got Ben in that one.
All right, fair enough. Well, you have your hands full with Patricio Freire. This will be May 11th at the Allstate Arena and will air live and exclusively on DAZN. Michael Chandler, thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to see your fight.
You got it. Thanks.